So recently, I was doing some work where I had to have a date and time picker, and the component that I was using, it had a time picker built into it, but then a bug request came back from QA about how when you enter the time into that field, that it doesn't drop down in the selection list to the time, that it should. So I was like, all right, I guess I gotta not use that component and use a select list. But I didn't want to have to type all the times out in the select list. So here's what I did instead. So welcome back to the channel. My name is Kenny. If this is your first time checking out the Almost Engineered channel, please be sure to subscribe. Each week I come through with new videos and technology and do-it-yourself tasks. So if either of those topics interest you, again, please subscribe. So we'll go ahead and jump into the computer for this one because, well, we need a computer. And so I have written a blog post if you want to go check out and copy the code that I have available for this. I will put a link down in the description below, and that will take you to this blog post where you can just copy the code. And so what I have here is, like I mentioned, I had a problem where I needed a select list. I previously used a Kendo component, a time picker is what they have. And in that, it basically gives you a input field on a web page with the option, if you click the icon, it presents you with a drop down. But if you type in that input field, the drop down will not automatically jump to the time that you're starting to type. So what I had to figure out to do is I needed to create a select list, but I didn't want to type out each of these times by hand. So I leveraged the skills that I had for writing stuff in Bash. And as you see here, I created a small, simple Bash script. And first thing it does, it outputs the opening tag for a dropdown, which is the select tag. I don't have any attributes here. Putting attributes in here for this tag is not that difficult. And then the next thing that I have it doing is a couple of for loops. So there is a inner and outer for loop. So this is the outer for loop that starts with for H, and H represents hour in this case. And then there is a inner for loop with a M, and M represents minute in this particular case. And then we have it also outputting the value that it is going to print, which is the option value that you see like down here. This is printing out each line. So for the hour, this one is for a 24-hour clock. In this same blog post, I have it also down here for a 12-hour clock, but I'm going to explain the 24-hour clock first since it's easier. So for H is in between 0 and 23. So in Bash, in order to get out a range of numbers with a for loop, you have to enclose them in the curly brackets and then do your starting range number with 2 periods and then the ending range number. And it will automatically increment this by 1 for every iteration that it does. Now for the inner for loop, I am using the minutes. And so what I needed to have it to do was to output this time in 10-minute increments from 12 a.m. midnight until 11:50 p.m. or 23:50 for your 24-hour clock people. And from that, you get this output here of echo. And so in the echo command, I'm basically putting in the static text. So that would be the option value equals and then a quotation mark. And then the $H represents the H from the outer for loop, which is this one here. And then the $M represents the value for M, which is the inner for loop here. And then in the display value, which is in between the two option tags, you have the same thing that was previously here. Now, yes, I could have put this into a variable and just used that variable more than once, but I didn't. I wrote it this way for the sake of simplicity. And when you run this, you end up with a output like this, and it goes from 00, which is the equivalent of midnight, all the way down to 23:50, which is 11:50 p.m. So that works for the 24-hour clock. And just to show you, I'm actually going to put this back on a single line and going to open a terminal. As you see, I'm running VS Code. And let's close this sidebar over here so you get more from the screen. All right, and so you can put all of this on a single line as long as you have it separated. Normally, if you type this into bash, you'll do 4h in 0.23, and then you'll hit enter, and then you'll type do next, and then keep going and so forth. And what happens is it will automatically put those semicolons in for you. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just copy and paste. And as you see here, the output that I have down here on the web page would be the same output that is printing from the terminal. That being said, we're now going to jump down to the 12-hour clock because the steps for a 12-hour clock are different. As you notice, for the 24-hour clock, there's only 3 commands: open select, the 4 loops that do the hour-minute combination, and then a echo command for the closing select tag. For the 12-hour clock, you have the same open select tag and closing select tag, but then you also have to do the 12 o'clock hour for AM and PM separately from the remainder of the times. And the reason being is because when you're doing 12-hour clock times, the 12 o'clock times come before the 1 o'clock times, and so if you put them in here let's say if I were to put this as 12, that will put the 12 o'clock times at the end instead of at the beginning where they should belong. So what I've done is actually taken out the inner loop. I've changed this outer loop. So this is the same as the 24-hour clock, but I've changed the outer loop to go from 1 to 11. And the inner loop is the same from 0 to 5. And then there were option values are almost the same. The only difference is I've added AM for this first one and PM for the second one. Now for the 12 o'clock hour, since I am only doing 1 hour, I just took the inner loop and then hard-coded the hour variable to 12 for both the value and the display. And then again, same thing, AM and PM accordingly. And when you run this, you get the 12 AM to 12:50 AM from the first one. Then you get the 1 o'clock to 11:50 AM for the second one. And then basically you do the same thing, but just for PM. And then you get your closing select tag. And that is it. So if you want to use this on your web page, whatever you got, you can do so. Again, a link to this code so you don't have to recreate it will be down in the description below. It'll take you over to my website and you can copy it from there. If you have any questions, feel free to drop those down in the comment section below. Hopefully this code snippet has helped you when you need a time picker. And until next time, peace out.